Hello students, welcome to the official channel of Saurav Sir's classes. Like in my previous video, I was discussing about the demands placed by the Indians to the Britishers enlisted under the 11-point program. So because the Britishers didn't accede to the 11 demands enlisted under that program, the Indians were compelled to launch a movement that will actually prove the power of the Indians to the Britishers. And the movement, which was launched in anticipation to non-accession to the demands enlisted under the 11-point program, is the Civil Disobedience movement, which took place from 1930 to 1934. Now, coming to the first phase of the Civil Disobedience movement, which is launched in the form of salt satyagraha, that is insistence to abiding the truth pertaining to laws of salt. Okay, so it took place in the form of the famous Dandi March, which was initiated or started off on 12th of March 1930 from Sabarmati Ashram to the coast of Dandi. And the Indians had picked up some salt, and the salt indicated the Indians' will to liberate themselves from the Britishers. Thus, the salt stood as the symbol of India's freedom from the Britishers. So that was the first phase of the Civil Disobedience movement that was launched in the form of salt satyagraha. Then the second phase of the movement involved the Britishers' reaction to the movement, the mass killings, the uprisings, the arrest of eminent leaders like Gandhi on 5th of May. So this was the second half of the movement, and this movement of course has significant impacts upon India's freedom struggle. This was believed to be one of the biggest mass uprisings of Indians launched against the British colonial rule. So, coming to the immediate programs or objectives that were undertaken as a part or course of this movement. So, coming to the five-fold program of the Civil Disobedience movement. Coming to the five-fold program of the Civil Disobedience movement, the first and foremost program obviously would be defiance of salt laws. So the Indians did not wish to pay such a heavy tax on such a basic ingredient of salt which is used in cooking. So basically the walk from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi and then picking up some salt on the coast of Dandi was a symbol that Indians would no longer comply with the requests or orders of the Britishers. So that was a symbol of liberation and symbol of India's determinate will to liberate itself from the shackles of British colonialism. So, the first fold program undertaken under this five-fold program structure of the Civil Disobedience movement includes the defiance of salt laws. The second program initiated is boycott of government, schools, and colleges by students. So there were several national education centers. Among that includes the Bengal University Center or College with Aurobindo Ghosh as the principal, which was launched in anticipation to the partition of Bengal. So the Indians actually, tried to promote their scheme of national education and urged the students of both schools and colleges to boycott those schools and colleges owned by the British government. So this includes the second program under the five-fold program structure of Civil Disobedience movement. Third program includes burning of foreign goods. So, the immediate objective of this movement included the attainment of Purna Swaraj, that is complete independence from British rule. So Purna Swaraj can actually be attained if India does not take any goods from the Britishers. So it was necessary for the Indians to promote their own Swadeshi goods and boycott the goods manufactured by the British. So the violent measure of boycotting the foreign goods was to right and there burn the foreign goods which were being sold in the market. Okay. Then the fourth program includes organizing dharnas in front of shops selling liquor. So the shops selling liquor were picketed, and also the shops selling liquor, the women and children used to go and give dharnas in front of those shops who were actively selling liquor. Okay, this was the fourth program under the fourth program. And lastly, the fifth program would include urging government officials to leave job and join the movement. So the last program under the civil disobedience movement include urging government officials to leave the job and join the movement. So Indians who were holding high posts in government civil service, they were urged to leave their jobs and join hands with the Indians in their movement for freedom struggle. So in this way, the Indians would actually show that they are no longer dependent on the British, neither in terms of job, nor in terms of goods, nor in terms of any other amenities, civic amenities which people need for their day-to-day living. So by showing this alienation from the British rule, the Indians wanted to prove that they no longer needed the guidance of the Britishers to administrate their territory, and this was a clear indication on the part of Indians to leave their country and go abroad. So this was a clear indication on the part of Indians for the Britishers to leave their country and go abroad. Now, it's obvious that the Britishers will not stay quiet in response to this agitation that was going on. So firstly, coming to the important dates that are to be taken note of in this regard. 6th, no, not 6th, 12th of March 1930. I repeat, this is a very important date. 12th of March 1930. Gandhi set off with his followers from Sabarmati Ashram. So this was the historic day of launching of the civil disobedience movement, wherein the chief architect of the movement, Gandhi, along with his followers, had set off from the Sabarmati Ashram. So this day, 12th March 1930, is officially declared as the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. The date for beginning civil disobedience movement. So after completing 385 kilometers of walking, 385 kilometers of walking, Gandhi and its followers were ultimately able to reach the Dandi coast on 6th of April 1930. Okay, 6th of April 1930, Gandhi and his followers reached Dandi coast, picked up salt. Salt became the symbol of Indians' will to liberate their territory from Britishers. So these two dates are very important when it comes to the timeline of civil disobedience movement. So after starting off their journey on 12th March 1930, Gandhi and his followers travelled 385 kilometers. Apart with the followers who had set off from the destination of Sabarmati Ashram, they were joined in by other followers, the villagers, women, children, who gradually joined them en route. Okay, so there were many other people who joined the march later on, as the march proceeded from Sabarmati Ashram towards the destination of Dandi coast. And finally, on 6th April 1930, Gandhi and his followers were able to reach the Dandi coast, and Gandhi picked up some salt, and this salt became the symbol of Indians' will to liberate their territory from the shackles of British rule. Okay, so these two events or these two dates are very important in the timeline of civil disobedience movement. Now, we come to the next topic of discussion, which is reactions of British and significance of the movement. So, reactions of the British and significance of the movement. The British initiated lathi charges against women and children as well. So, lathi charges were initiated by Britishers not only against women but also against the children. So violence and and torture seemed to know no bounds. Even the violence and torture inflicted upon the people did surpass the violence and torture that was inflicted to the victims of Jallian Bagh massacre, that was inflicted under the leadership of General Dyer, who had commanded his soldiers to fire off the Indians who had actually assembled in the Jallianwala Bagh to discuss the arrest of leaders like Saifuddin Kichlu and all. So I think you are aware about this historic event. This event was the initiating point for the non-cooperation movement. So even the kind of violence and torture that was meted out to the Indians at that point of juncture, that violence had actually surpassed the violence that was meted out to the Indians at this juncture. Okay, next is violence and torture was inflicted by the police to the demonstrators. So violence and torture was inflicted by the police, British police, to the demonstrators. Okay, that is the people who demonstrated or guided the masses to initiate and proceed forward the movement. Okay, and okay, then eminent Indian leaders were arrested. So obviously eminent Indian leaders were arrested, including Gandhi ji, on 5th of May 1930. So Gandhi himself was arrested on 5th of May 1930. So this the launching of this movement obviously led to the arrest of a wide number of political leaders participating in the freedom struggle. Now, the significance of the movement. Why from the beginning I'm terming this movement to be one of the significant mass uprisings initiated by the Indians against the Britishers? The reason is almost every section of the nation had participated in this movement, including the women and the children. So this movement witnesses a majority of women and children coming forward to initiate struggle against British. In this sense, civil disobedience movement was the greatest mass uprising nation could have witnessed. So this movement actually witnesses a majority of women and children who come forward to lend their hand or contribution towards the initiating the struggle for freedom against the Britishers, and so as such this movement can be regarded as one of the biggest mass uprisings launched by the Indians to free or liberate themselves from the shackles of British colonialism. All right. So this the movement was ultimately settled with the second roundtable conference. Gandhi was asked to attend the second roundtable conference, where the Britishers did promise Gandhi to accede with some of the demands that were put forward by the Indians. But however, the independence was still postponed after convening of the session of the second roundtable conference. Stay tuned to my videos for getting to know about second roundtable conference and more details in Indian history. Hope so that you like the content of our channel, and if you have any recommendations to improve the content of our channel, you're free to comment in the comment section below. So that's all for today's lecture on civil disobedience movement. If you want us to cover any more topic pertaining to Indian history or any other topics that come for competitive exams, please recommend your suggestions, or you can mail it to Saurav Sir's classes official email address. Thank you. Stay tuned. Signing off for the day.